Welcome to CTV News Trendline with Michael Stittle and Nik Nanos.
Conservative premiers in general would rather complain and attack and mislead Canadians for narrow political gain because of both an ideological objection, apparently, to fighting climate change, but also to an unwillingness to recognize that we are putting more money in people's pockets with rebate checks that Pierre Poilievre wants to take away from Canadians.
Well, there you go. What do you make of that, Nick?
I'd put on a thick Scottish brogue with a Scottish accent, like a wee bit testy, don't you think? The Prime Minister is like, obviously they're getting under his skin.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, but the thing is a couple things. So, it's fair game for him to take on the premiers. He's trying to categorize them all as conservative, but I would like to point out, and I think as part of our, why don't we call it live fact-checking process, Wab Kinew, the Premier of Manitoba, last time I checked, I don't think he's a conservative. He's a New Democrat. And, he came out and said, he'd like to see an exception for Manitoba, and he thought that there were alternatives and that they had a plan to meet stuff. So, to a certain extent, I can understand what Justin Trudeau is saying, but, what's interesting in the polling is that, for those conservatives and for Wab Kinew who have kind of want to look at other things, they've touched into something that has come through in the polling, and polling that we did at the tail end of 2023 on the carbon tax basically suggested that, that Canadians were unsure how effective it would be. And that's basically what these conservative premiers and Wab Kinew are basically putting in the window, that perhaps there are more other alternatives that are more effective than a straight up carbon tax. But it's a bit of the I don't know, is there a little bit of the fighting Irish in Justin Trudeau? But I know St. Paddy's Day's gone, but yeah, fighting Irish for sure. And it's pretty clear that he wants to show that he's committed to his policy. He wants to show that he believes in his policy and that he's not afraid to take criticism from anyone when it comes to what he's advancing when it comes to the carbon tax.
Nick, obviously the real test of the Liberal policy is whether our carbon emissions go down.
Yeah.
And do you think that this could actually impact the next federal election, depending on what those numbers are?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Like, if we have an election later in 2025, there could be some numbers in terms of carbon emissions where we can get a line of sight on that. And regardless of the bickering between Poilievre and Justin Trudeau, setting aside the bickering, this is realistically going to be judged by two things: the impact on the day-to-day lives of Canadians, even factoring the rebate that the Liberals are doing, but it'd also be judged by the impact, I think more importantly, on carbon emissions. If carbon emissions go up, people are going to go, what's up with that? Like, I've been asked to pay this carbon tax so that we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions and they're going up. It'll undermine people's confidence in the tax. If carbon emissions go down, then that'll allow the Liberals to say, look, this is the right policy, and that this works. And we have to kind of interestingly point out that we recently had another conservative prime minister, I should say a progressive conservative prime minister, who had a very unpopular tax, the HST, was vilified because of that tax. And this tax later to be embraced by all of the other parties, the HST, because of the stability that it brought to the finances of Canada, and it's just being seen in the long term as good public policy.